Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Thursday night. Hope everybody's feeling right, living well. Hope you're ready to have a conversation about the Titans' work that they got in against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the last 2 days. The joint practices have concluded, and now the preseason game will be played. Tonight, we're going to talk about a bit of a step back that this Titans offense particularly took and observations that we made from over the course of the last 2 days. We're excited to have you guys in tonight to begin this discussion. Of course, there's going to be a lot of good content. You're going to hear from Mike Vrabel, particularly, who was very, very passionate about what he had to say today after these joint practices concluded. We will get into this. Justin Tomaselli says, just practice. It's true, Justin. It is absolutely just practice, and you're saying you will be fine, and I do think that's so. But in the same way, in the state, Captain Trips asked me, did I get in a fight too? Man, everybody else did. 5 different fights. 5 different fights for the Tennessee Titans and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man. Something else that we'll talk about over the course of this evening's show. Before we do that, though, I need you guys to share this show on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. We would appreciate you sharing the broadcast wherever it is that you get things going. If you are on Twitter, please go ahead and retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you are on Facebook Live, it's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, and you can share now to public. If you are on YouTube or on Twitch, please subscribe to the channel where you can get 7 days a week, rather, A to Z Sports live streaming content here on the A to Z Sports network. That is, just the cup runneth over in terms of content. Football, Titans, SEC, Vols, Preds, whatever you need, we got it. And that's what we're doing on the A to Z Sports network. Now that more of you are here, you've been waiting patiently, and we can go ahead and begin the show officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time, not from the DraftKings Sportsbook studios, but from Tampa Bay. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford, the best in the business since 1983. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. The fine folks at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is DraftKings Sportsbook. Promo code A2Z Sports gets you in on all the action. Make sure that you start winning today with the promo code A2Z Sports. Of course, the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. Your dream address without the stress is what they offer you, or sell your home for more with the fine folks at the Ashton team. And of course, if you need satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs, baby, you can get it at Brymak Mechanical, BRYMAK, Brymak.com. Terrence says, let's get it on. Indeed. So the Titans and the Bucs, man, they got it on 5 different times on the field today. I wrote up the article at A to Z Sports Nashville.com. I counted 5 fights, five different interactions. I've got the full list of them in front of me. So you have Jeffrey Simmons versus Ryan Jensen, the Bucs center. You have Nick DeZubnar, who has just been recently added back to the roster as a special teams linebacker, versus KJ Britt. You got Fred Brown versus another a nameless special teamer for the Bucs, who I could not discern because Fred Brown had him on the ground and was downtown. Freddie Brown was going to town on this Bucs, on this poor Bucs special teams player. Antonio Brown popping Chris Jackson square in the jaw. Smart by Antonio Brown. Popped his helmet off first and then caught him with a right hook. And then the worst of the fights, probably, Cam Batson versus Carlton Davis, and Devin White, the linebacker, getting involved. Then it all had to be broken up physically, like Mike Vrabel pulling dudes, like physically lifting dudes up and pulling them out of the pile on the practice field today. And he was pissed about it. We'll talk about that later on in the show. But there was something in particular that caught my attention. There was something in particular that caught my attention with this Titans team. And I want to get into it, but I want to ask you guys the question first. I want to know in the comments section, your Two Rivers Ford take. Scale of 1 to 10. How concerned are you about the Titans' offensive stars that are missing, because there's a long list of them at this point that aren't doing very much right now. Now, maybe that's not necessary, but I do think that it is an intriguing conversation that we can have. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, please let me know, how concerned are you about the Titans' offensive stars who are missing right now? We'll have this discussion together. You can weigh in your Two Rivers Ford take on A to Z Sports Prime Time if you would be so kind enough, and we will get into it together. Scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about the Titans' offensive stars who are missing right now? So over the course of today, here's my main takeaway. Okay. Whatever the Bucs did wrong on Wednesday and how fairly human the Titans made them look on Wednesday, everything kind of evened out. I mean, not even evened out, but like tilted in the scale in the favor of the Bucs on Thursday. Tom Brady was dicing up the secondary today. There were no 3 interceptions thrown by Tom Brady. The interceptions being thrown were by Ryan Tannehill, because the vengeance of the Buccaneers defense came back to bite him after he had a strong day without his star wide receiving set available to him. So things really, really evened out. But, a lot of it I took away as looking at, there's nobody out there. There's nobody out there today. There wasn't really that many people out there yesterday. And I understand that it's practice, but like these practices in particular, these 2 practices are hugely critical. Not just for good, healthy competition, beating up on another team as opposed to your own teammates for a couple of weeks in training camp when you return home to Nashville. These are very important practices right now, these 2 in particular. And the fact that they played as few guys or practiced as few guys as they did, I found to be, maybe if not outright concerning, I was surprised by how light they went with the guys that they had out on the field. So a scale of 1 to 10 is the question. Your Two Rivers Ford take. We'll discuss it together right after I tell you about our friends at Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford has all kinds of incredible American-made Ford vehicles on the lot, and so many new ones that are coming out, like the Ford Maverick. Now, the Ford Maverick is not yet available on Two Rivers Ford lot in Mount Juliet, but you can pre-order your Maverick right now. It's under $20,000. It's a Ford truck that is a Ford truck for people who are not necessarily truck people. I myself am not a truck person. My rental car right now is a truck. I have found out that I don't like how difficult it is to maneuver a full-size truck, but the Ford Maverick, which I have test driven, is not like that at all. It's fuel efficient, it's cost effective, it has all the bells and whistles that comes with all of the new Fords, and it's priced at under $20,000. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you right now about the lack of Titans offensive star power that's being displayed on the field? So Chris Fraser says, Antonio Brown is crazy. Man, the picture that George Walker of the Tennessean got today of AB popping some dude in the chest, or popping Chris Jackson in the chin, it wasn't funny because obviously you don't want to, some dude getting knocked in the face isn't funny, but like it was crazy how, because there was nothing like this yesterday. It was very, very calm yesterday. We made fun of Taylor Lewan calling it a bloodbath on Sunday before they headed down here. And really today, indeed, it did turn into a bit of a, mostly pushing and shoving, like outside of Antonio Brown making full on contact, like the rest of them, you could debate like how actually close to a fight they were. Although the Carlton Davis, Cam Batson, Devin White one was really, legitimately heated. And at that point, the coaching staff stepped in. This was, I think Jeffrey Simmons and Ryan Jensen were the last ones to feud, but certainly 5 total fights on the day. Not something you want to see when you're trying to preserve these guys' health at the foremost, of course. Ronnie Anderson says, we ain't taking no BS. Andrew Bartley Campbell says he's at a 3. Chris Frazier says a little, and that's understandable. Kedrick says he is at a 4.0. Mr. Blutarski, says Lewis Chesney. Stephen King says, not that Stephen King, but the YouTube Stephen King says 2.43, a -5 for the GOAT CJ2K. So, yeah, I understand why. And listen, with the Julio Jones thing, I've told you, don't sweat it. Like, just don't get bent out of shape about it right now. But for the rest of the dudes who aren't out there, I've been pretty shocked by how little they have done and how critical some of these players are. For example, like the wide receivers.
On good days, Chester Rogers, Marcus Johnson, what was clicking for you guys over there?
Guys competed. It was a good day overall. It's definitely some things we need to clean up. Got to be better on third down. I didn't think we played very good on third down, really at any point today. But guys came out and they competed. It's hot out here. There was no excuses. Guys dug deep and found a way to make plays. Some big plays early on. Nick made a big one down the field. Marcus made some plays. Chester made some plays competing. Even in one-on-one, started off a little slow, but once guys got going, then built some confidence and started making some plays. So look forward to building on it tomorrow.
So that's Ryan Tannehill talking about, the absence of A.J. Brown and Julio Jones and the opportunity that other wide receivers have gotten. And that's all well and good. It's Marcus Johnson and Chester Rogers on the field. But even today, Marcus Johnson wasn't on the field. And while I'm not here to sound the alarm yet, that's been the history of Marcus Johnson, is that he deals with these soft tissue injuries. He spoke to this himself. And they have really derailed what could have been a much more successful career up until this point. So when I go through the list of dudes who did not practice over the last 2 days, let me run down the list for you. Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, Nate Davis, Ben Jones, Darrington Evans, Dane Cruikshank, Tucker McCann, Danico Autry, Matthias Farley, and Jeff Swain all sat out both days of work. Now, today, Marcus Johnson and safety Brady Breeze also did not practice. There's a lot of big names in that list, and it's not just Julio Jones, who I've told you to kind of, back off a little bit about how upset you're getting about the fact that he doesn't practice. So certainly with Ben Jones, man, Ben Jones hadn't done anything on the field in front of, I'm sure he's doing work in the facility and all these things, but Ben Jones hadn't done anything on the field in like a couple weeks at this point. Nate Davis has missed a couple of practices now. A.J. Brown, there's no reason. Unless there's something legitimately bothering him, there's no reason he shouldn't have been out on the field today. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at 44-year-old Tom Brady, 35-year-old Ndamukong Suh. Antonio Brown is in his, let me Google how old Antonio Brown is right now, because I know he's in his 30s. He's 33 years old. Gronk is up. Gronk, I think, just turned 31. Like, Gronk is shockingly young for as long as he's been in our lives. But, these dudes are up there, and all of them are practicing for the defending Super Bowl champions. So unless something is significantly wrong, I understand that each team has a different approach and that the Titans are very, very cautious with injuries, as is their right. They can handle their players any way that they want to handle their players. But I'm looking at a bunch of old dudes out there on the field today for the team that just won the chip. And I'm saying these guys are out here and they're getting the work in both days, nonstop, full go, full bore. We want to beat you down, even if it's only 2 practices. And I'm thinking to myself, what could possibly be keeping all of these guys out for the Titans? Because those dudes aren't playing in the preseason game if they're not even practicing. Of course they're not going to play in the preseason game if they're not practicing. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you? Let's see. Eddie Cardona says a 4. Chris is unbothered. He says a 0. Steve Haygood's a little more, much more worried. He says an 8. Evan White says 6.7, not 6.9, which is disappointing. A missed opportunity by Evan White. 2 for Ryan Dodd. So we got our ass kicked in football practice and with actual hands today, says Xavier. Listen, ass kicking is probably too far. I wouldn't say that you got your ass kicked by the Bucs, but on the field, these two teams, and again, they're missing a lot of dudes on the Titans. They're not practicing for whatever reason. So it's understandable that they would look worse because their full complement of players is not out there, and the Bucs are running everybody out there. Full bore, full go, just as we've said. So ass kicking is not how I would describe it today, but you were definitely the inferior team. And at a point where these 2 practices, I think, are more important than any training camp practices that you're going to have at any point. Joint training camp practices are the only two practices that I really care about dudes participating in. And so few did. So from that standpoint, if you're asking me my concern, I would say to you that I'm not over a 5, right? Like I'm still pretty mellow about this, but it's starting to catch my attention. And in a way that I did not think it was going to matter before, it's starting to matter because of how much different the product looks on the field without all these guys available to them. Again, it's not that long of a time until September 12th, and then all the regular season games that result afterwards. Those are the ones that matter. But right now I'm sitting probably at about, I would say a 4. I'm starting to get there. I'm starting to wonder, why isn't A.J. Brown doing more other than just going through individual drills at an open stadium practice so that, the Titans can show the fans something and then have him not do anything for the rest of the day and just show Julio and him on the Jumbotron and get everybody going because they've distracted you with the eye candy. But in reality, these dudes aren't practicing. A lot of dudes aren't practicing. And that to me is a concern. We'll continue to take your reaction here in just a second. A scale of 1 to 10. How concerned are you with the amount of Titans offensive players that are missing right now? And we will do that right after I tell you about everyone's favorite time of year, because it's right around the corner. It's college football season. To celebrate, DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is putting new players in the center of the action with $200 in free bets instantly if you bet $1 or more on any college football game. Take advantage of this limited time offer right now. Simply head to the DraftKings Sportsbook app to check out all of the great promotions and daily odds boosts that they're offering. You can do that by downloading the DraftKings Sportsbook app, using the promo code A2Z Sports, that's ATOZ Sports, to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any college football game. That's promo code A2Z Sports to get your free $200 in free bets instantly for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Promo must be 21 or older, Tennessee only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 4. How concerned are you about the lack of offensive firepower that the Titans have at their disposal? Because Mike Vrabel said A.J. Brown simply wasn't available today, and that the dudes who weren't practicing simply aren't available, and basically left it at that. But I'm sorry, at a certain point, that's not good enough. It's just not. And I mean, Mike doesn't care about that stuff, but it's okay for you to. Xavier Clemens says a 3.7. Allen is unbothered. He says a 1. Corey Smith is with me. He's at a 4, as is Wesley Thornton. Jeremy Woodley says 3. You don't drive a Lamborghini every day. Yeah, but Jeremy, it's not even getting out of the garage. It hadn't. Do you know that through, I think it's a total of 16 training camp practices, there's not been a day when the entire offense is together. There's just not. So you're talking about not driving a Lamborghini every day. That's fine. You take it out once a week. You can take it, you could take it out on when you're pulling up to a special occasion. You got a wedding you want to go to. You want to flex on all your friends you haven't seen in a while. Yeah, take the Lamborghini out. Why not? But it's not been out of the body shop at all in like a month. It hasn't moved. It, for all we know, it's sitting on cinder blocks in some reclaim lot right now. I understand what you're saying, and in any other circumstance, I would be inclined to agree with you. But they haven't all practiced together yet. Not once. Whether it's AJ or Julio or Ben Jones or Nate Davis or Taylor Lewan or Roger Saffold or Derrick Henry, they haven't worked together yet. And at some point, maybe it's too early to be freaking out about this, but now is the time to pay attention to it, is what I'm saying to you. I'm not saying you have to sound the alarms. I'm just saying start paying attention to the fact that your fantastic offense that your general manager has put together and that, you think is the second coming of 30.7 points per game. Great. But at some point, it's got to work together. And it can't be the first time on September 12th. It simply can't be. Alan Wilkerson says 5. I think they're playing it safe. Olivia Burns says she's concerned about the injuries. A 6 for Eric Valadez and Steve Haygood, or Steve Hagood, either way. Dom Odell says 4, but they'll probably all be questionable on the first injury report. Two Rivers take Buck, says Bobby French, is a 3. Okay. Fight's a good sign against the defending champs. So show us we are on the level, says Justin Ryan. Listen, you weren't on the level today. I think you were getting frustrated today because you were getting beat. I don't think fights are a good sign. You're the team starting. Well, Antonio Brown started the first fight, so let me catch myself on that. But Jeffrey Simmons started a fight. Cam Batson started a fight. Fred Brown started a fight. Guys are starting fights because they're getting frustrated because they're pissed off in the heat, and some of these dudes are getting beat, and they don't like getting beat. And Antonio Brown is high-stepping in the end zone because he's beating Caleb Farley on an in-breaking route, and he's flexing on everybody, and he's spinning the ball in the end zone, and then dudes are starting fights because they're getting beat. Fighting is not a good sign. Fighting shows a lack of discipline. Fighting shows frustration, and you can't be the one that's frustrated. You're supposed to be the one frustrating people. Wednesday, you were frustrating people. You frustrated Tom Brady. He threw 3 interceptions against a secondary that's starting to, looks like it's starting to get its stride together. It's not the end of the world, okay? I'm not telling you that your biggest takeaway should from two days against the Bucs should be, yeah, the Titans stink and the Bucs are great. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying that you have to understand how to process these things. And what you're saying, Justin, it's not on the level. It means you're getting beat. And that you're taking it out in ways that are illegal on the football field. Kicking, says Bobby French, he's a 10 out of 10 concern. I think the kicker's okay. I wouldn't worry about the kicker right now. I'm at a 5. Remember how Adoree was kept on the hush, says 5 runners. Yeah, but that shit was bad. Media is making something out of nothing, says Lane. They're working behind the scenes. Okay, but work in front of the scenes at some point. Like, you can throw routes on air all you want, but you can't. I mean, and by the way, behind the scenes doesn't mean that they're doing work on the field. There are rules against that. They can get fined a shit ton of money. They can get fined a shit ton of money if they do stuff on the field that it was without that is outside of the bounds of what has been collectively bargained. The coaches know that. Mike Vrabel's not letting them do that. So we're not making something out of nothing. We're telling you what's happening every day. Sometimes I can be overreactionary, so it's not like I've never been overreactionary in my life. But I think for the most part, you want to talk about on the level, I think I, for the most part, give you guys information on the level, right? Do you know me to be overly reactionary when I'm telling you, yeah, don't stress about Julio Jones. He doesn't practice. Yeah, it's okay if Caleb Farley looks a little rusty. He hadn't played football in 2 years. But when I'm telling you this, you should listen because I'm watching it play out every day. We are watching it play out every day. It's something, I'm not saying sound the alarm, but it's not nothing. It's something. Start paying attention so that you're not caught off guard when Julio Jones and Ryan Tannehill don't necessarily look crisp in week 1. If they're on the field together in week 1, you don't go screaming at Ryan Tannehill because Julio Jones and him aren't on the same page. It's something to pay attention to. If they don't practice next week, something's wrong, says Trevor Thomas. Well, that just seems like a silly way to do the analysis. D. Kelly says, slow down, PK. No, listen, you can't. And if Paul's saying the same thing, Paul's right too. Pay attention. Don't. I mean, how could you possibly want to exist in this fantasy world where you think everything's right and everything is on the level and everything that they're telling us is rainbows and butterflies that are shooting out of your ass? No, what a dumb way to go through life. Pay attention to what's happening and pay attention to the people who are telling you what's happening. So when something happens, you're not caught off guard. You're like, yeah, we've been paying attention to that. You've been monitoring the situation. This is simply a conversation about monitoring the situation. Right now, I'm monitoring the situation because the offense hasn't practiced together yet. That's something to pay attention to. I get management, but even the Bucs have put starters out there. The Bucs have everybody out there. Everybody. And they're all a bunch of old dudes. Like, that's what I'm saying. If anybody was going to load manage the way that the Titans are, it'd be the damn Buccaneers. But no, they're out there trying to cave the Titans' skull in for 2 practices. No, something's up. Pay attention. That's all I'm saying to you. You're on A to Z Sports Prime Time. Juicebox 678. Yeah, now I sound like one of these people that I hate. Open your eyes, sheeple. It's true. Those guys are superstars that can turn it on. D. Kelly, you have no idea. These guys, I mean, yeah, listen, it happened against the Bills, but that's a totally different year. It's a totally different offense. It's not a totally different coaching staff, but it's a different offensive coordinator. At some point, I'm sure that Todd Downing would like his full complement of players out there available. Oh, Michael Kist. Michael Kist is lurking in the chat on Twitter, out here bothering everybody. We love to see it. How did the pass rush look, says John Henry? I mean, listen, the pass rush can't knock Brady over. So, I mean, there were moments when it did look good. I really thought that the Bucs offensive line is good, and I thought Bud Dupree, who you want good news? Bud Dupree has practiced every day since he's been off PUP. That's good news. That's great news. Caleb Farley, by the way, the same. Now maybe they haven't gone through like every practice fully, but they have the last 2 days. That's a big deal, massive deal, huge deal. That's such great news. But I would say to you, ultimately, for all of the positive things that you're seeing from those two on defense, and yeah, Caleb Farley looks rusty. Like he got a bunch of times today by Godwin, by Gronk, and by Antonio Brown a couple of times. So I would say to you that you can find positives in some places, but also I'm not saying that these are negatives. I'm just saying, like, pay attention to what's going on with your offense, because at that point, you wait, so that just so it doesn't get caught, just so you don't get caught by surprise. That's all I'm saying. Buck asked Paul about him locking his car up. Yeah, Bobby, let me tell you about PK locking himself out of his car, because we Paul and Tehran and myself and Michael Kiss, this troll who's lurking in the mentions on Twitter, and John Ledyard from Pewter Report, we all went to dinner before the primetime show, and Paul told us, as we were coming into practice today, he said, yeah, I locked myself out of my car. I was out there for like 3 hours. And I said, Paul, like, we were out here pretty late yesterday. You could have like gotten a ride with us or whatever. He said, yeah, I hid from you guys so you wouldn't make fun of me. And then I waited for the guy. I waited for the tow truck company or the locksmith or whatever he called to come to One Bucs place, which is where the facility is. But he went to the wrong One Bucs place. Paul's sitting there screaming at somebody on the phone about, Tom Brady's office, the one Bucs place, the only place that Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice. You went to the wrong one. How could you possibly? But that was indeed. So Paul hid from us because he didn't want us to make fun of him on Wednesday. And he told us that this morning while we were walking into practice today. Too funny. Colts lost all of the preseason, then won the Super Bowl, says Deborah Hussey. And she's calling me a drama queen. Well, I am a drama queen, Deborah, but also you haven't won a Super Bowl, and the Colts had Peyton damn Manning. So, like, chill the hell out. You don't have anybody that's Peyton Manning. You don't have anybody that's Tom Brady. You have Ryan Tannehill and a bunch of really, really good players who haven't practiced together yet. It's important. Don't tell me I'm being dramatic. I'm the one who's trying to tell you, hey, look around, be realistic about the shit that's going on with your football team. And if you want to be too thick to do that, it's entirely your priority. But you're just going to be made to look foolish when something doesn't look right if this continues on. That's all I'm saying to you. All right, let's move on, and let's talk about things I want to watch in the preseason game tomorrow. The question for you here on A to Z Sports Prime Time. We've talked about the biggest concern for the offense, because that's the next question that I have on my rundown. But honestly, I think that we should talk about a player that I'm really excited to watch. Which player are you most excited to watch? In the comment section on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. Producer Reed, I'm so sorry. You've been through hell today because I've been a bit of a nightmare to deal with while I've been in Tampa. But which Titan are you most excited to watch in the preseason game on Saturday? Let me know in the comments on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Which player are you most excited to watch? I'll give you two here in just a second, right after I tell you about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. That is the place that you go for your dream address without the stress. That is the place that you go to sell your home for more in a market that is infinitely skewed towards people selling. Take advantage of that and get the best possible offer on your home with the Gary Ashton team. That's what they do. That's why they're the official real estate agent of the Tennessee Titans. That's why they're the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators. That's why John Hines, Mike Vrabel, and me all use the Ashton team to purchase our dream address without the stress. GaryAshton.com is the website for the Ashton Real Estate Group of Remax Advantage. Our buddy Gino is back. Gino says, of course, the headline again is negative commenting on a meaningless practice. Well, it's not meaningless, dummy. But, weren't you like bragging about like having a $2 million basement or something stupid like that? Like, Gino, if you got to tell people how much money you have, like, you're probably not. You're probably overcompensating, I would imagine. But you didn't say anything positive on the good show against the Bucs. You only look for negatives. You're not a pro. Well, I was just getting ready to talk about two players that I'm excited to watch for the Titans, but I guess you don't want to hear about that, Gino, because you got a $2 million basement, and instead you're hanging out in the comments on YouTube without an avatar and just bitching about shit that you have no idea about. So such is life. Let me know in the comment section on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch who are you most excited to watch in this preseason game. Hooker says Corey Smith. Roderick Paxton says, I agree with you, Buck. How do they think they're just going to run out there and the timing is good? Yeah, I mean, it's a situation to monitor. All I'm saying. Seth Keegle says Weaver, Bud, and Farley says Juice Box. So Mike Vrabel wouldn't tell us whether Caleb Farley is going to play or not. Now he's here. He did travel to Atlanta, but he didn't play. Molden didn't travel to Atlanta. So it would be curious to see whether either Caleb Farley or Elijah Molden end up playing. I don't think Bud is going to play. I don't think the starters are going to play. Like, I would not anticipate that at all. Fulton, says Logan McCracken. Fulton may end up being a starter, and he may end up playing. So let me correct myself by saying, guys who need the reps, like Christian Fulton, I would anticipate them probably seeing some work, but I don't think you're going to see starters. I don't know whether you're going to see Caleb Farley or not. I probably won't know that until I go to the stadium tomorrow and we kind of do a little more digging on that, because they weren't giving us anything today in that regard. Farley, says Deborah Hussey. Lane says Molden, hopefully. Jackrabbit says 111. Keith, again, I don't think you're going to see Rabbit. Weaver says Dustin Bilger. Marcus Johnson, if he plays. So Marcus Johnson did not practice today. I hope that it's not an injury, because that dude has worked too hard to get bogged down yet again in his career by an injury. He's talked about how soft tissue injuries have really derailed his career up to this point, and that he feels like the reason that he's been balling in practice is because he's healthy. And then today he didn't practice. So I hope, knock on wood for his sake, just because I like the person. I hope that's not how this is going, because that would be really, really unfortunate to see. But I'm also very interested. It's funny that many of you bring up Rashad Weaver, because I'm excited to watch Rashad Weaver, especially after Greg Cosell and I talked about Rashad Weaver yesterday on my podcast, The Install with Greg Cosell.
Well, what the tape showed to me, and I think this is a positive, is he looked very much like he did at Pitt, because he's a player. He's not a quickness explosion player. He's not a bender. He's not flexible. He's not purely explosive. What he is he's a player with strong, heavy hands and natural power. That's how he played at Pitt. That's how he looked in this preseason game. And what was really interesting to me is I think he played 41 snaps, and there were snaps in which they moved him inside, by the way, in the sub-nickel front. And I think that'll be interesting to see if they do that, assuming he makes the team, and if he becomes part of the rotation when the regular season starts, if they do that and they move him inside. But putting aside those plays, and there might have been 10 or 12 of those, the rest of the plays except one, he always lined up to the boundary side of the formation, the short side of the field. And that's interesting. And the reason that's interesting is because when he was in the base defense, meaning a 5-2 or a 3-4, whatever people want to call it, it's essentially a 5-2 front, because there's 5 players on the ball and 2 stacked backers. But the reason that's important is when you're playing to the boundary as the outside line of scrimmage player on the ball, then you're the edge setter in the run game, because the corner can't be, because the corner's got to run with the receiver. If the receiver runs vertically on the boundary side of the field, the corner's got to run with him. So he's the edge setter in the run game. And that's that's a big responsibility because you can't let anyone get outside of you. But I thought he looked very much like he did in college. You saw the heavy hands, you saw the power, and that's what he is. He's an on-the-ball player. We might have spoken about this. He was not going to be a stack backer. He's
Right.
going to play on the ball.
So that's Greg Cosell of NFL Films talking about Rashad Weaver, who I'm really excited to watch. Greg and I, we did a really fun podcast, by the way. We did a really, really fun podcast, by the way, that's available to you now, wherever it is you get your podcast. We broke down all 5 first-round rookie quarterbacks because the Titans could see all 5 of them because they play all 5 of the teams that those dudes got drafted by during this season. So really worth your time. And then we broke down specifically Rashad Weaver and Dylan Radins. I'm really excited to watch Rashad Weaver. I thought the work that he did against Atlanta, understanding that, you know, the Atlanta players are not going to be Hall of Fame NFL players. Like it's not about that. It's about the technique and the fundamentals that he brought to the preseason game and applied against the dudes that he was beating. And that was very, very technically sound. Now, you heard Greg say he's not a huge burst guy. He's not hugely explosive. He's not very flexible. He's not a dude that like bends the edge, right? When you're talking about like Von Miller or somebody like that. That's not the kind of player that he is. But he's incredibly strong. He's got heavy hands, as Greg said there, and he's versatile, which means you can use him in a bunch of different packages alongside guys like Harold Landry and Bud Dupree, or in rotation, depending on what kind of packages they're running. How did Weaver look against the Bucs this week, Aubrey Calvin? I thought he played well. Again, it's difficult to judge because they can't physically knock the quarterback down. And if anybody gets close to Tom Brady, then, you know, all hell's going to break loose. But I did really enjoy watching Rashad Weaver, and Cosell said he really liked watching the film of him as well. A second player, who are you most excited to see in this game? TN Titan 7 says Weaver and hopefully Farley. Yeah, I would enjoy watching Caleb Farley as well. I watched Farley all week long. I bet he doesn't play. I don't know that. I'm not reporting that. It's possible just because he's here. But I have a feeling that Caleb Farley is not going to play tomorrow. It's a good sign that he's been in every practice since he's been activated off NFI. I have this feeling that because he got so much work in these joint training camp practices that they don't roll him out there. I would be surprised if they did that. I don't anticipate seeing Ryan Tannehill either. Farley, Molden, Fulton, nice future trio, says Dom Odell. It's true. We will see a lot of good plays made by I think all those dudes have a really good future, provided, you know, that nothing happens and that injuries are avoided and things of that nature. But he did. So Farley had a good first day. And then today he got the business. Like today, Gronk got a piece of his ass. Antonio Brown got him. Mike Evans got him. He did on Wednesday have a really nice breakup on Mike Evans. Really good recovery speed. He's got great length. So he got up under Mike Evans, like got his hands up between Mike Evans' arms while he's trying to haul in the pass from Brady. Bit of a back shoulder throw. And it was a nice play on the ball. He had a few good plays, but you know, outside of that, he looked like a dude who hadn't played football in 2 years, as we talked about yesterday, and he got a lot more today. So I would say that I would not anticipate seeing him at this point. Not reporting it. I don't know anything for certain. I just have this feeling about how much he did the past 2 days that they probably won't push him much further in a preseason game that doesn't mean anything. I think you'll see a lot more depth guys again. Let's move on and let's talk about the Brymac bounce back candidate of the week. I've got a good one, and I want you guys to weigh in with yours. Who needs to bounce back most in sports this weekend? Let me know in the comments section on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, and we'll wrap up the show for the evening. Who needs to bounce back most this weekend? Let me know, and we will discuss at length together right after I tell you guys about Brymac Mechanical. BRYMAK, Brymac.com. Satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. They will get you in a position to succeed. They will make sure that you are in your comfort zone. Commercially, residentially, Brymac got you covered. BRYMAK, Brymac.com. Who needs to bounce back most this weekend? Let me know in the comments section. Stephen King says, Raidens all day. Let's see. Farley seems to be credited for his speed. Anybody know how his speed is looking coming back from the injury? I think he looks great. I think athletically, Caleb Farley looks fantastic. He really does. Like, all of the athletic traits are there. The speed, the recovery speed, the length, the mobility, the agility, the way that he moves, it looks very fluid. Like, everything athletically does it. He doesn't look like he's been hindered by the back procedures at all. But the technique is something that's raw, right? Super raw. And skills that he hasn't had to use, since 2019. So of course he's going to be a little off his game initially as he tries to relearn the nuances of the position. But I think athletically, everything like rebounding from the injury, I think you're really, 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 really comforted by what you've seen. Troy Wood says Des Fitzpatrick, man. He had a couple nice plays today for sure, but I don't think in fact, I know this coaching staff doesn't think much of him. He frustrates the holy hell out of the coaches. And I'm not just talking about Mike Vrabel. His position coach, Rob Moore, who is a very, very mild-mannered, soft-spoken individual. Rob Moore, it gets frustrated with him. I do not see Todd Downing have the kind of, when we watch them at practice, I don't see Todd Downing have the kind of reaction the other two do to Des Fitzpatrick. But man, it was shocking to me how, and I can't report on player to player or player to coach interactions or all these things. Like, there's restrictions on our reporting, and I try to play by the rules because that's only fair. But they don't seem to think much of him, and it does not seem to be getting better in the immediate. It's only been a week since the preseason game. But if you're looking for his reps to increase, maybe just because they don't have enough bodies there, but I don't think you see him, leapfrog Fred Brown or Mason Kinsey or NWI. Racey McMath still has a lot of work to do. Like, Des Fitzpatrick really could use a bounce back. That's a good one by Troy Wood. Sam Cam says Sean Watson, man, that's a bad deal. Rashawn Evans says Corey Smith. I mean, Rashawn Evans hasn't done anything wrong. Bizarro PK with Ric Flair. We talked about this. I'm Ric Flair's alibi. Ric Flair, who's had the picture go viral of him, apparently going down on somebody on what appears to be like a train car. Ric Flair was at a bar in Tampa the same night that this picture went out of him. So I am Ric Flair's alibi. That is not Ric Flair in the picture, because I saw Ric Flair drinking a glass of wine by himself watching SportsCenter at a bar. That picture. When somebody texted me, said, hey, Ric Flair's going viral. I said, well, was it because of my tweet? And then I said, oh no, I may actually be Ric Flair's way out of this thing because I spotted him in Tampa Bay on Tuesday night. Noah Fitz says Des Fitzpatrick. Tank Sinatra says Fitz, he'll need a job somewhere, if not with us. Yeah, a lot of people saying Gino. Listen, Gino knows that it's all love in here. Just because I think a lot of the comments that he made this week are stupid doesn't mean that Gino is not welcome here, or that Gino does. Listen, Gino probably doesn't think he needs to bounce back. I think Gino could probably understand a little more how the show goes and understand a little bit more of the theme of the show. But that's a personal opinion, and Gino may not feel that way. So, Gino, who's popped off a couple times this week, totally respectable. A lot of people calling for him to be a bounce back candidate. That is yours to decide. He is not my bounce back candidate. But I will give you mine here in just a second. Rashawn, we read the Rashawn Evans. Tim Tebow says Carl Cross. Tim Tebow's going to be fine. Tim Tebow's sitting on a mountain of money. He's gonna live just fine. Let's see. Des Fitzpatrick or Flair paid Buck to cover for him. Robe guys stick together. Amen, brother. I'm Ric Flair's alibi, says Evan White. That's right. Consistent defense, not just once against Atlanta backups, says Texas Sports 1015. I mean, they were pretty consistent against Atlanta, like throughout the course of the game. So I don't know if you're talking about like consistency week to week. I don't think Blaine Gabbert's going to go out there and break him over his knee. You guys are familiar with the Blaine Gabbert experience, but I think ultimately that I would say to you that they do consistently look better than they did a year ago, both in practice and in preseason so far. It's early. We'll see what they are able to do on Saturday against the Bucs. William Talbot says, "What's good, Buck? Can't wait for the season. You're the man and have been loving the radio show every day while I'm trying to sling this insurance. Just wanted to show some love." Man, thanks, William. I appreciate that. So he's a fan of the radio show and apparently hangs out with us on prime time. Want me to play some bets for you, Buck? Says Captain Trips. No, I don't bet on the NFL. It's just, I'm a NFL reporter. Like, I think it would be not immoral, but I don't think it would be great for me to bet. I mean, it would probably be immoral, but I don't, it's not right. I shouldn't do it. So I don't. Vrabel being more transparent, says Troy Wood. Yeah, it's not going to happen. James Welch says, Buck, I need to bounce back. What do I need to bounce back from? I think I've had a great week. Mike Vrabel, who Mike Vrabel thinks needs to bounce back? Mike Vrabel thinks his team needs to bounce back because he was not thrilled with what they did today.
Mike, how would you rate the quality of today's practice?
Thought it sucked.
Okay. Why did it?
I don't know. From what I saw, we didn't do very well offensively. I don't think we competed like we did yesterday. Probably a lot of reasons, but, just not good enough. They were clearly better today, and, we'll see how we respond and take the coaching and play on Saturday.
So Mike Vrabel thinks his team needs to bounce back. He thinks it sucked. So we'll see if they can't suck any less on Saturday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This week has not sucked. This week has been a lot of fun. It's been great to have you guys a part of it as always. Thank you, each and every one of you, for your participation. You make this show a lot of fun for me to do. Enjoy the rest of your week. The radio show will be live from Tampa Bay again tomorrow. And then, of course, I'll have pregame coverage for you on 104.5 The Zone from, I think it's 3 o'clock to 4:30 on Saturday. And then me and Jim Wyatt will do our pregame hit on the Titans radio network before the game begins. It's always a pleasure. Make sure you check out this week's 615 Sessions podcast. Make sure you check out the articles that I wrote from practice today at A to Z sportsnashville.com. Make sure you check out the install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. So much great content provided for you. And you know what? Josh says it best. The week is not yet over. So you know what, Josh? I simply don't have time to get tired yet. See you guys on Sunday.